Why did Kareem Abdul Jabbar boycott the Olympics? 1968 was a difficult year for the United States. The US was involved in a very unpopular war with Vietnam at the time. Not since the Civil War had the country been as divided as it was over the Vietnam War. Amidst the division was a daily clash of those who supported the war and those who opposed it. Several times, the clashes were violent and sometimes bloody. The US government was more concerned with promoting the war. So, every night, Americans were greeted with images of US planes bombing the jungles of Vietnam. But while America was fighting a war abroad, there was another war brewing at home. 1968 was the same year Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Robert Kennedy was also shot that year. The war that was brewing within the US was not a conventional one where people took up arms. It was a war against racial injustice, a war Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was leading before his death. On the day Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, some white soldiers flew Confederate flags outside their barracks, a sight that only depicted how divided the nation was at the time. The Vietnam War was a backdrop for the struggle for black liberation. African American soldiers in Vietnam were facing rampant racism every day. Yet, many black men were practically forced to fight in the Vietnam War through the US government's drafts. Muhammad Ali had famously refused to register for the drafts even though he was told that he wouldn't be involved in combat if he was drafted. Ali's refusal meant that he was sent to 5 years in prison and stripped of all his boxing titles. Ali captured his revolt in one sentence: "No Viet Cong ever called me nigger." To Ali, he saw no sense going to fight the Vietnamese, a people of color, wearing the colors of a country that discriminated against him because he was black. Years later, the Supreme Court overturned his sentencing. On the other hand, some black soldiers saw the Vietnam War as an opportunity to make it out of the ghetto or to become the best soldiers they possibly could. But even within the military, racial discrimination awaited them. Black soldiers were dealt unequal punishments, were on the receiving end of offensive and inflammatory language, and faced continuous harassment from the security police. But the ultimate price for discrimination within the military was not the hurt that black soldiers received from the terrible things done to them. Rather, it was that they paid with their lives for an unnecessary war. By 1966, 1 in 5 of all US combat casualties were black. To put that in context, less than 20% of the American soldiers in Vietnam were black. Staring all these in the face was the 20-year-old Kareem Abdul Jabbar, who at the time, still went by the name Lou Alcindor. Kareem was at the prime of his college career, having been awarded Player of the Year, Most Outstanding Player in the NCAA Tournament, and USBWA Player of the Year. Kareem had also just played what was dubbed the Game of the Century against the Houston Cougars at the Astrodome. Simply put, he was head and shoulders above his peers, quite literally too. It was no surprise that Kareem was invited to try out for the Olympic basketball team that was to represent the United States at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. Normally, it would have been a thing of pride for any player of Kareem's status, at the time, to represent their country at the Olympics. But these were not normal times. America was in turmoil both at home and abroad. And nothing illustrated that reality better than the 1968 Democratic National Convention, where thousands of anti-war protesters gathered around the convention center but were met with police violence. For many, the Olympics was seen as an avenue to bring some national healing to the country. After all, few things unite a country better than sports, even if the unity may be ephemeral. But for Kareem, the Olympics looked like another demonstration of hypocrisy, where political issues were ignored under the guise of entertainment when in reality, the event is a money-spinning event with billions of dollars at stake. If Kareem was unsure about his feelings towards the Olympics at the time, his reservations were strengthened by the then 26-year-old sociology professor, Dr. Harry Edwards. Edwards passionately urged black athletes to boycott the Olympics Games at Mexico City. In his words, Edwards told the New York Times, "For years, we have participated in the Olympic Games, carrying the United States on our backs with our victories, and race relations are now worse than ever." He continued, "We're not trying to lose the Olympics for the Americans. What happens to them is immaterial. But for the black people to stand up, and men and women refuse to be utilized as performing animals for a little extra dog food." Edwards' words were very strong. And many white sports fans viewed it as being too harsh. But for many black athletes, including Kareem Abdul Jabbar, it resonated with them. Kareem could not reconcile the suffering that black soldiers were enduring in the Vietnam War with the largesse of the Olympics. According to Kareem, some of the black soldiers in Vietnam were his childhood friends whom he had grown up with. But now, they were risking their lives fighting in a war that he considered unnecessary. As a rising star in the world of sports, who had garnered lots of attention, Kareem knew that his decision with regards to his participation in the Olympics that year would speak volumes both at home and abroad. As was the case with the black soldiers in Vietnam, Kareem could not see the justice in going abroad to represent your country and bring glory to your country only to return home to be treated as second-class citizens. In an interview with Joe Garagiola on the Today Show, Kareem expressed his concerns about participating in the 1968 Olympics considering the political turmoil at home and abroad. Garagiola was not pleased that Kareem even considered boycotting the Olympics. Kareem was clear about his concerns. According to him, race relations in the country had to be addressed and the plight of blacks in the country be given priority. In Kareem's opinion, white America was less concerned with race relations. For Kareem and many other blacks, the social upheaval was an opportunity to draw attention to racial discrimination. In the end, Dr. Edwards' call for black athletes to boycott the Olympics did not gather as much traction as he would have liked. But Kareem's mind was made up. He refused to be a part of it. Kareem's excuse for not being a part of the Olympic team was that he had a summer job with the city of New York, and it allowed him to attend school without worrying about his finances. At the Olympics itself, many black athletes went on to represent the U.S. One of the most iconic images to come out of the Olympics was that of Tommie Smith and John Carlos on the award podium following their gold and bronze medal wins at the 200-meter race, raising their black-gloved fists and bowing their heads as the national anthem was played. It was their way of protesting racial discrimination at home. And the message was heard loud and clear. Like this video? What is your opinion on Kareem Abdul Jabbar's boycott of the 1968 Olympics? Looking back now, do you think it was the right decision? We'd love to have your opinions in the comments section below. Remember to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you next time. In addition, Jabbar would go on to be one of the greatest and most accomplished athletes in history. From winning a championship in 1971 with the Milwaukee Bucks to winning multiple MVPs and scoring titles, his first years on the Bucks were dominant. In October 1974, he requested a trade from Milwaukee. He would later be traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. With the addition of Magic Johnson in 1979, the Lakers were well on their way. James Worthy, Michael Cooper, Byron Scott, A.C. Green, and Kurt Rambis, a dynasty was soon to follow. He would go on to win 5 more championships, another MVP, a Finals MVP, and countless other accolades. When he retired in 1989, Abdul Jabbar held the record for most games played by a single player in the NBA. This would later be broken by Robert Parrish. He also was the all-time record holder for most points, 38,387, most field goals made, 15,837, and most minutes played, 57,446. Jabbar's faith has always been central to his core. Standing up for the underdog has always been part of his character. I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you for watching.